He's more awake than I am this morning.
Thought you guys needed that.
Okay, so
He's
even
more
though it
awake than
says
I am this morning.
it shows that we're live, but just give us a minute to get it
Thought you guys needed
confirmed.
that.
Quorum is 8? No, 9. Or is it 10? Because we only have 10 right now.
Quorum is 9 or
18.
15. Yeah, so we're fine. We're good.
Great.
Okay, and we are broadcasting live on YouTube now, so we are good to go.
And it is 8:59, so we will just wait one more minute to see whether any other members of the Board of Directors are going to join us today. Haha, I was wise to wait. Member Boxham is having trouble connecting. She says she has an invalid meeting link.
We have already received an email from her and we're responding already.
Okay, great. Thank you. It is now 9 o'clock, however, and we do have quorum. So I will just ask all of the members of our Board of Directors to turn on their cameras just to be sure you're here. I understand, of course, we have bandwidth issues. I just want to be sure. Oh, and there's Member Boxham now. Member Allen, I see that you're here, but I see a blank screen only, a black screen only.
Can you hear me, Chair?
I can hear you though. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I keep clicking this little camera thing with a red line through it, but it doesn't want to do anything for me. It doesn't want to come on.
Okay, well, we'll have to deal with you orally. Thank you so much. And Member Mankdalo, oh, there you are, Member Allen. Member Mankdalo, I don't see you either.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can though, thank you so much. And Member Harvey?
I have the same problem as Member Allen had. I click on the start video and nothing happens.
Oh, drat, okay.
I just came on, so I think if you keep clicking it on and off, it's still a little asleep, so it needs a bit of a kickstart.
I will try that.
Okay. And
High tech.
there we go. And there's Member Harvey. Super. Okay, so we have regrets this morning from Member Smith, but that's the only one. And we have Member Matrosofts is going to be a titch late, but I believe we will get underway. So I will call to order this meeting for March of the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority Board of Directors. And I will invite Member Nielsen to read our land acknowledgement, please.
Thank you, Chair McLeod. The Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority Board acknowledges that we are situated on the traditional land of the Anishinaabe. The Anishinaabe include the Ottawa, Saulteaux, Anishinaabe, Mississauga, and Algonquin, who spoke several languages, including Anishinaabe-Moan and Potawatomi. We are dedicated to honoring Indigenous history and culture and committed to moving forward in the spirit of reconciliation and respect with all First Nation, Métis, and Inuit people.
Thank you so much. I will look now for declarations of pecuniary and conflicts of interest. Are there any declarations thereof from members of the board at this time? I see none. However, if you find yourself in that situation, please declare so at the time. I'm looking now for a motion to adopt the agenda, and that is moved by Councillor Boxham and seconded by Councillor Watson. And the resolution is that the agenda for the Board of Directors meeting number 03-22 BOD dated March the 25th, 2022 be approved. And I will ask you all to go to your on board and do the voting there. And you'd think I would have mine ready to go, wouldn't you? There you go.
Through the chair, that motion has carried.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Moving on to announcements. Do we have any announcements from members of the board at this time? I believe that there have been several conservation authorities this morning which have declared flood advisories. I do not believe we are in a flood advisory in any location in Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority. However, just something to keep an eye on. Presentations. We have a presentation this morning from Kyra House. She is the manager of lands and operations, and she is making a presentation this morning regarding community engagement through syrup. I have not yet eaten all of last year's syrup, so I think I have to make some more pancakes perhaps this week. Anyway, Kyra and Naomi, I see you just joined us as well. Which one of you is going to be speaking to this PowerPoint?
Good morning, Chair McLeod. Well, it's going to be a team effort, just like our maple syrup program, really.
Super. Thank you so much. And take it away, please.
Okay, perfect. So I'd like to thank the board of directors and the guests for joining us today. So Naomi and I are going to talk about NVCA's maple syrup program that runs every year at the Spring Tonic, at the Tiffin Conservation Area. So we do recognize everyone's got a very busy schedule. So we'll just be providing a brief update of our programs. So my name's Kyra. I'm the manager of lands at NVCA. And so the Conservation Lands program oversees the production of maple syrup at Tiffin. So from sap to syrup. We're responsible for the infrastructure associated with the program and ensuring that visitors have a safe and enjoyable experience. And Cheryl, if you could move to the next slide, please. Thank you. Naomi?
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. So the environmental education program sees approximately 1,500 students through the education program just for maple syrup. And having a sugar bush on site really allows the education program to provide one of the most popular programs that we have to offer. Between the lands department providing the syrup operation and tasty syrup, the education department booking people to come to the center to buy the syrup, together, I think we make a pretty good team.
Thanks. Next slide, please, Cheryl. So Tiffin's maple syrup program began before NVCA even owned the property that would become the Tiffin Conservation Area. So we hear stories about families coming out here for generations. And anyone who makes maple syrup knows it takes a lot of work. Like all agricultural production, it's very labor intensive. So although NVCA staff are involved with the production of maple syrup, it's mainly volunteer led. We rely on a dedicated group of volunteers who commit hundreds of hours for the collection of maple syrup and processing the sap. So our volunteers all have very different reasons for helping us out, but they all believe in the benefits of the program. We've had some of our volunteers who have joined us for over a decade, and we're really happy to have them back again this year. Next slide, please. The NVCA board has supported a number of infrastructure improvements over the years. Every year, staff and volunteers make a few changes to improve the program, whether it's new taps or length of line or the replacement of the evaporator. All of these improvements have resulted in the fine-tuned production program that we see today. Next slide, please. Thank you. So it's one thing to make maple syrup. It's another thing to engage the community using maple syrup. The Lands program coordinates the Spring Tonic Maple Syrup Festival every spring. And shameless plug, we're hosting it again next weekend, and you're all more than welcome to join us. We're hoping for great weather and a great turnout. So originally, members of the board of directors facilitated the maple syrup program and Spring Tonic. And the event would run over the course of 2 weekends. Board members would be out slogging pails and flipping pancakes in support of the event. Now the festival is coordinated in partnership with the Rotary Club of Barrie. The event provides NVCA the opportunity to engage with the community, increasing the profile and understanding of the organization, while also raising funds to support program delivery and reduction of municipal levy support. The event welcomes watershed residents and then also visitors from the GTA contributing to the local tourism industry. Next slide, please. So unlike weddings and events, which we strictly do for revenue generating opportunities, the maple syrup production and programming is about so much more. It provides a tie to our heritage. It provides us the opportunity to engage with the community. And really, it's delicious. It's so much more than just pancakes. Marianne, I can give you lots of recipes if you want to use up your maple syrup. So I'm going to pass it over to Naomi, who's going to touch base on the environmental education programming perspective. Next slide, please.
Thanks, Kara. So the environmental education program it researches different ways in which the syrup has been made, and actually most recently discovered a more accurate interpretation of the Indigenous method that we have been teaching, and regularly add content so that it's an active exploration of the sugar bush, especially for our primary kids. It promotes agribusiness. It's a sustainable and local source of sugar, packing all sorts of minerals and vitamins. And it really connects to so many different parts of the Ontario curriculum. There's a type of curriculum for each grade from kindergarten up to grade 6 at the very least, which is our primary target. Next slide, please. So we have a lot of different local school boards that visit. We run our March Break camp. March Break exists because of maple syrup, because historically in pioneer days, children would have left the schools, so they had to help on the sugar bush because, as Kyra said, it's so labor intensive that even the wee ones would have been helping, just even delivering firewood. So we have March Break camp. Kids during the camp can visit the sugar bush and have a tour as well. Our nature program will be participating, and community engagement. We see all sorts of different groups, newcomers to Canada, Autism Ontario, the guides, scouts sometimes. Yeah, and even parts of all the different municipalities that come on Spring Tonic as well. Next slide, please. Yeah, and as mentioned, of all of the different community groups, the newcomers to Canada seem to be the most excited about it. As Canadians, we're super proud of maple syrup because it's the only place, as well as some of the northern United States, that you can make maple syrup, but with the temperature, climate, trees in our area, that we can do this. So when people come to this part of the world, they're super excited that they can actually learn how it's done. They've only ever heard of it before. So, and it's a wonderful way to share our heritage, and it's a wonderful way for these folks to learn some English while we're giving a tour. Next slide, please. So in the past 5 years, 14 out of 18 watershed municipalities have participated in the Tiffin Maple Syrup program. We're targeting the last 4 by offering virtual programming. Another silver lining of the adaptations we've had to COVID is we are now delivering virtual programming, and we've even had people take part in Brazil and India. So that's kind of exciting. We're engaging students of all different ages. Even high school students come through to help out with the co-ops or volunteering. And soon we will be offering French programming. Our Catholic schools and our French schools really like to come out for maple syrup especially, and they've been asking for years for French. And so it's a move we're going to be putting in place for next year. Next slide, please. So it's the busiest month we have for programming outside of all of the programming we do for the Simcoe County District School Board. And as mentioned, virtual programming has expanded reach outside of our watershed, Toronto, Penetanguishene, Mississauga, and the ESSA Library virtual tour is the one that we had even further guests from India and from Brazil. We see an average of 1,500 people through the maple syrup program annually. Next slide, please. Oh, next slide, please. I think I was talking to that slide already. There we go. All right. Thank you very much. Oh, actually, Kyra, I think I missed that one. No, I'm sorry. Cheryl, could you? Yeah, there we go. So combined revenue. So syrup sales in 2021 was $10,000, and in 2019, Spring Tonic revenues were $20,000. So combined revenue generated between the two programs is around $50,000 to $60,000 annually. This revenue contributes to operating expenses of the Tiffin Conservation Area, reducing the need for supporting funds required from municipal levy. Next slide, please. Thank you. That's our presentation. Thank you very much. And we would be pleased to take any questions.
Excellent. Thank you. Are there any questions from the board? I see Margaret. Anybody else? Okay, Margaret.
Thank you, Marianne. So you said 50,000 in revenues. What are the costs?
Which of you would like to take that, Kira or Naomi?
Well, for education, it's really just staff time. Kyra, do you want to talk about, because it's really your department that manages it?
Yeah, I don't have a figure off the top of my head. We've got one staff dedicated part-time throughout the season for the oversight of the volunteers. You know what, I can get back to you with the response to that, if that's.
Yeah, I just wonder that you've got bottles, you've got things. So how much does it cost us? How much do we make? What is the actual amount that what's our profit?
Yeah, so we usually average about, for material costs, about $3,000 per year just for the bottles. The fortunate thing is whenever the bottles cost more money, then we have more maple syrup. Then we're buying more bottles to fill to make additional revenue that way. And it all benefits, obviously. So our main cost would be the staffing to oversee, and then the implementation of the program. But both of those are very volunteer-led as well.
All right, thank you.
Member Watson.
Thank you, Chair McLeod. Quick question about parking on Spring Tonic Day. I'm not sure if we did this the last 2 years, but I remember probably the last year before COVID, there were complaints from some of the neighbors on the road about cars parked blocking driveways and that. Has that been looked at or fixed up somehow so that we don't get into those issues this year?
Kyra? Yep, if I may. Through the chair, yes, we've addressed the issues. We hope that we're not going to be having any issues or concerns. What happened was we've got obviously limited parking at Tiffin, and then the overflow parks on the road. So we've got volunteers that will be stationed at the front. But the main issue is that some of the driveways to residences off the 8th line don't look like they lead to anything. They're driveways into the forest. So what we're going to do is place barricades so that vehicles can't park there. So that won't restrict any of the residents from being able to leave their property. We've also been working with the ESSA municipal staff. So they're going to be placing no parking signs throughout the 8th line. And then we'll be keeping an eye on it throughout the weekend as well. So it's kind of a good issue to have a little bit, yes. But it's definitely a challenge. We've also reached out to our neighbors down the road. So there's an academy. And so if there's overflow buses, we're going to hopefully be able to put them there as well. So further alleviating the pressures from parking on site.
Okay, thank you very much. Well done. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from members of the board? Excellent. As a person who was seconded into helping to make maple syrup as a child, I can well attest to the amount of work that it takes, and that if you decide to finish it off in the house, it will take the wallpaper off your kitchen. If you Donna knows what I'm talking about. Oh, CAO Hefner has his hand up.
Thank you. Through the chair, if I might speak to a little bit on the revenue as well. Our revenue far exceeds our expenses, and we split the revenue profits between Rotary and the NVCA. Average revenues that we receive over the years work out to about $25,000 in revenue received on our share. That's after the split. Rotary has in the last few years generously supported RVH through this program. So this festival is reaching back into Barrie and supporting the community that way. So just so you're aware of that.
Thank you. So helping in a bunch of ways. Okay. So we'll conclude conversation on item number 7 and move on to number 8, which is deputations. And there are none today. Thank you so much, Naomi and Kyra. Appreciate your time. Number 9 is hearings. There are no hearings. And item number 10 is determination of items requiring separate discussion. And my understanding is that items number 12.2.2, 12.2.4, and 13 have already been pulled for discussion and perhaps direction. And I'm now asking if there's any other items that require separate discussion on the agenda. Vice Chair Little.
I'm sorry, I just didn't see Member Patterson here today. So would we postpone item 13 until he can be present?
That's certainly a possibility. I'm going to turn to, I noticed that myself actually, and was wondering what we ought to do. I do have the administrative bylaws with me, but I don't think that they speak to that. So Director Flanagan?
Thank you through the chair. I was in the middle of typing a message to you, so that was perfect timing. We have messaged him to see if he is planning on attending. If he joins prior to, then we would continue. Otherwise, I would suggest that we defer it to the next meeting.
Happy to do that for sure. Okay. So 12.2.2, 12.2.4, and 13 at this time, and possibly not 13. 13 might be deferred. And so that brings us to item number 11, which is the adoption of the consent list. So everything else on the agenda will be adopted by consent. It is moved by Mayor Allen and seconded by Councillor Jebb that agenda items number 12.2.2, 12.2.4, and 13, identified as requiring separate discussion, be referred for discussion under agenda item 9, and further that all consent agenda items not referred for separate discussion be adopted as submitted to the board, and staff be authorized to take all necessary action required to give effect to same, and further that any items in the consent list not referred for separate discussion and for which conflict has been declared are deemed not to have been voted on or discussed by the individual making that declaration. And so I will call for the vote. And on item number 11, is Margaret Mercer is a yes. Mayor Floyd Pinto is a yes. Oh, and the staff report, we can deal with that in a minute. Any other yeses that want to be on the screen instead? Member Mangtalo. And I'm
that is carried.
Excellent. I'm also a yes because I can't work my screen quick enough to get over to onboard to do that. Okay. And so that brings us to item number 12. The consent list. And so let's begin our discussion on item 12.2.2, which is the staff report from CAO Doug Hebner regarding the update of the inventory of programs and services, the IP&S. Perhaps what we can do, I'm not sure who pulled this. Oh, wait, I did, because I would like to hear CIO Hebner sort of walk us through where we're at right now. I think this is an item that we're going to have to talk about every meeting, henceforth until such time as the transition plans are complete in 2024. So CIO Hebner, can you tell us where we're at right now?
Certainly I can. I've tried to give you a few dates that of transactions that have happened. As you're all aware, we did send out on February 28th to the MECP our programs and services with a cost breakdown. And we followed that up on Monday morning, going out to the CAOs of all of our municipal partnerships in the watershed. The interesting thing from the perspective of the data that was presented, the 36 conservation authorities provided the data in two ways. We followed the MECP's initial request to create an average cost for our program and service delivery. Some of the partner agencies from other CAs across Ontario selected 2022 with real numbers and said that they were possibly more accurate. We came up with approximately $5.5 million in total average cost. But I do want to point out there is one important factor, and that is how in the future moving forward, we will handle overhead with respect to administrative costs and the costs of doing business. Currently, in our former budgets up to date, we have taken a percentage of the overhead cost and taken it back to each and every program so that each program shows a fixed overhead and administrative cost. In the future, we'll be moving into aligning all of those costs into one program with the administration costs. That's where they'll all show up. So you will see a reduction in all of the levy costs accordingly. It's kind of like the glass of water is half full and half empty at the same time, because we're just reallocating those costs to another department within the total budget scheme. But when you look at the programming costs that we've provided for you, and we've identified the percentage of levy that goes out, the total percentage of levy that goes out, we can quickly make a calculation on each of our municipal partners through the amount of levy that they get paid, the percentage of levy they get paid. So we can adjust that large aggregate number into a smaller number for each and every area. When we submitted the information to the CAOs, we did it with a letter that we presented to you as well, encouraging them to take the time, digest the information, have a fulsome review with your staff, look over the numbers, and start reaching out to us with questions. Right now, we have 2 active discussions going on with our municipal partners. We're presently in discussions with Collingwood. We had an initial meeting with the CAO and some of her senior staff from the Collingwood area, and just had a little initial talk about the explanation of the process. And they're at the stage where they're still milling over the numbers. They're talking amongst themselves, and they're going to come back and meet with us in the next quarter and discuss things. Springwater Township, through their CEO, Jeff Schmidt, we have an excellent relationship with Jeff, and his staff have gone through and provided us with a very fulsome list of questions, asking specific costs and how things break out. So we're looking at that right now and preparing a response back to Jeff. So this last week, our senior staff and management team have gone through and looked at his questions, and we'll be moving that information on to Jeff. I think as we move through the process, you'll see further iterations of the costs of the programs and services that we deliver. I just can't say enough that this is a living document. It's not, here it is, you got it, that's what it is. It's going to continue to evolve and change. And it has to evolve and change through the participation and the interaction that we share between our municipal partners and our staff, and how we work that out. So hopefully, for your perspective in the future, your staffs will be coming to you with very explanative staff reports that talk and speak to these costs and programs. And everything is moving towards trying to develop compliance by the 2024 date. If you look through the document that I presented you today on staff report, you can see that a lot of it has been involved with working with partner agencies, with the CAOs and the senior staff at Conservation Ontario, making sure that we thoroughly understand what the minister is asking of us. And I think we have a very good understanding of what we're asked to do. So we'll continue to meet on a 2-week schedule of the 36 CAOs and general manager from Conservation Ontario. In addition, the NVCA participates in the Greater Golden Horseshoe Conservation Authorities Collective. So it gives us an opportunity to work with some of the larger agencies and look at some of the nuances that they have. They have much larger teams involved in their accounting and understanding of the numbers that they work with. They have staff that are dedicated just to this one item. So it's a great coaching opportunity for myself and my colleagues that we can bring that information back to our teams. So we'll continue to do that as well. I've also want to point out that we probably will be meeting in larger groups. We won't try to take on all 18 staff at the same time, but I'll refer to the section of the report where I break it out into Eastern, Central, North, and Western. We share on the western side of our watershed with Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority, Oro-Medonte, Barrie, Innisfil, Bradford, West Gillen, Barrie, and New Tecumseh. So that would be a group that we would speak to. And then on the Central North, we're looking at involving Springwater, Wasaga Beach, Essa, Clearview, Collingwood, and Blue Mountain. And then the final section on the western side in the southern tier would involve Agilentara Santiago. Sorry, Floyd, my apologies. I'm killing that today. I often refer to it as Agtos, so bear with me. Amaranth, Mono, Shelburne, Melanchthon, Mulmer, and Greyheim. So that's what we'll do. If we'll bring those CEOs or the planning staffs or whatever they want, so we can work in a smaller group and hopefully have a better opportunity to exchange information. So this is not a lot to report on what we're hearing back from municipalities. We haven't heard back from 16 of the 18 municipalities as of yet with any specific questions. We have heard back from 8 other municipalities saying they've been receiving information, they're looking it over and moving in the direction for further discussion. So at that point, I'd entertain any questions if you'd like, Chair.
Questions or comments from the board? Member Sandu.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick question. I know we're dividing it into 3 different groups to make it smaller group and have discussions. Would the findings or the discussion points from each group to be shared with other municipalities? So, you know, there's if there's any points that are raised in this and the other municipalities can benefit from it or learn from it, would those be shared?
If I could speak to that through the chair to Raj.
Yes.
Raj, what we're looking at right now with the information that we received with Springwater, we're analyzing the questions and saying, okay, are these good questions that are representative of what other partners may ask? So when we've gone through and responded and looked at the best method to answer that question, yes, we may reach out to our partners and say, hey, one of your colleague partners in our collective has asked these questions. Do you have questions or concerns on these specific topics? And if they do, then we can quickly break out that cost explanation for those particular participants. So yes, I think that that's how this process is going to evolve. It's going to start one-on-ones incrementally into larger working groups, and then broad distribution of information to all partners. I think what we really want to have here, and I know you're aware of this, is a very transparent and open process. That's what the government has asked us to provide. That's what I think we're hearing from our municipal partners. We just want to understand how you operate from an economic viewpoint. And we're happy to do that. So yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions on this item? All right, then. Thank you very much, CAO Hebner. And so we'll ask for a vote on receiving a staff report, or approving rather, staff report number 06-03-22 BOD regarding an update on the inventory of programs and services. It's a yes from member Mercer, a yes from member Watson, a yes from member Sandu, and a yes from Mayor Pinto, just for your edification.
And through the chair, the motion is carried.
Carried. Thank you. Next is item 12.2.3, which is staff report number 07-03-22 from Kira Howe's manager at Lands and Operations. And I did not pull this. Somebody did. No one has pulled that. You're shaking your head, Director Flanagan. Have I got this wrong?
Yes, through the chair, it was actually 12.2.4 that was pulled.
Thank you. That's because my fingers are small and my glasses are too. Item 12.2.4. is up for discussion now. Staff report number 08-03-22 BOD from Ben Kroll, who is the manager of planning. Yes. And so I will invite Ben in. There he is now. Hello, Manager Kroll. Could you give us an overview of this staff report, please? Although I think that there's some eye-popping numbers in it, especially the 75% increase in work with a 0% so far increase in staff. That's what caught me.
Yeah. So yeah, we wanted to bring this staff report forward, through you, Madam Chair, just to inform the board of just workload and staffing constraints, and just to try to find a solution to kind of move forward. So yes, you're correct. Since 2018, we've seen a 75% increase in applications. So this is not including non-compliance files, which are proving to be more complex and are just taking up more staff time in general. So staff are spending a significant amount of time on minor files and committee adjustment files, which are tied to Planning Act timelines. So with the additional staff member, senior planning staff will be able to focus on these high revenue files and be able to recognize the fees associated with those files. So these are the plan of subdivision, the aggregate proposals. So it's our hope that with the recognition of these fees, we'll be able to support the additional planning position, and that additional position will also be able to support regulation staff during business busy periods. So the ultimate goal is to improve service delivery and customer service.
Thank you. Questions or comments from members of the board? Oh, wait, before I get to you, Mayor Pinto, I see CIO Hebner's hand is up. He wants, I think, to add some information to this staff report.
Yes, through the chair, if I may, I would like to ask Director Hibbard if he would please comment. Some additional information just that I'd like him to bring forward as well, please.
Thank you, Chair Hebner, and through the Chair Hebner, CAO Hebner, Chair McLeod. Sorry. No, I appreciate that. Through the chair, I think we're working to try to be responsible, pragmatic, and creative in trying to address these issues. We're seeing tremendous growth in our watershed. COVID, especially around some of the smaller applications, the permits have just exploded, and as a result, we're also seeing, as Ben had mentioned, increase in non-compliance. We're looking at creative ways to try to address the staff resources. I think Ben hit it on the head and said we're trying to do client service improvements there the best that we can. And we say client, it's not only the person that walks in the door, it's our municipal partners as well. And opportunities to address the workload, but also we think there's some real opportunities for revenue recognition improvements with the staff resources. This isn't the first time we've looked at this. We took a full-time position and created 2 contract positions in around Christmas to also help with this. So this is sort of a linear process that we keep looking at and looking at opportunities to make those improvements. So we wanted to bring this report to the board to make them aware of some of the challenges that you probably already know and how we're looking at addressing these. So Ben and I are both happy to answer any questions.
And so I will, I saw Mayor Pinto's card for questions. Are there any other members who would like to ask questions or make comments? Member Watson and Member Allen. Anyone else? Vice Chair Little and Member Harvey. Anybody else? Okay, super. Let's begin with Mayor Pinto.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I totally support, increasing the fees for any type of service provided, because when residents want faster service, they got to be ready to pay. They can't expect faster service with, the same amount of staffing levels out there. And yes, the work is increasing in the watershed. I know in our township, the amount of permits are increasing substantially. So I'm totally in support of increasing fees to get more staff and, improve the service. My question is basically on the bylaw side of it. Maybe Doug or Chris, you could help me out on this. When we go to a bylaw complaint, like in our township, the way we run it is, if the bylaw officer goes the first time, they give them an education or warning. if the thing is still not yet compiled, and the resident still does not fix up the issue or rectify it, if the bylaw officer has to go there the second time, there's a fee attached to it. So does the NVCA have any such thing? Like, let's say I think it's Dan or someone who does the bylaw for the NVCA, if I'm not mistaken. But if he goes there the first time and it's not rectified and he has to go there a second time, do we charge the resident a fine or something to recover that cost of Dan to go out to the, because he's spending his time, he's spending vehicle time and, other expenses where he could be doing something else?
Director Hibbert, I saw that you were capable of answering this.
Thank you, through the chair. Excellent question, and thank you for your support on our what we're looking at trying to do here. In terms of non-compliance, so our staff, our regulations officers will go out, investigate, provide direction to the landowner or the folks that are doing the work. And one of the things that's built into our fees, if you have started a project and you need a permit and then you apply, the fees are double. That's already built into our, so our staff will work diligently to try to get voluntary non-compliance. We do have the ability under the Conservation Authorities Act to go to court. And in some cases we do that, but a lot of the work is to try to get voluntary non-compliance for the project.
Just a supplement on that, then I think Doug, you have something, Doug, before I go a supplement question.
Excuse me, through the chair, if I may respond. One other thing that I want to speak to and make sure everyone's clear on this is that during the phase 2 discussions with the MECP, one of the items they talked about was fees and charges for conservation authorities. They still have not landed on or prescribed how they may or may not change. So as far as just going out and being able to add more fees, we're sort of slowing down on that at this particular time to wait and see the direction of the government on that as well. I hope that helps a little bit, Mayor Pinto.
Yeah, thank you, Doug. And Madam Chair, just a supplement on the, about when the NVCA decides to go to court or lay charges or anything. I was given to understand that we do not, even if the court lays a fine or something, the NVCA does not get that money, goes to the province. So is there some way of the conservation authorities, not only us, maybe, get the support of other conservation authorities that if fines are levied, the money should come back to us because it's our money that goes, to fighting the case and things like that. So it's not fair that we pay all the money for lawyers or legal fees and everything, and the province gets to keep the money, if there's a fine imposed or whatever it is.
Through the chair, Mayor Pinto, excellent point. It's been a discussion point for a long time between CAs and it does go to the Crown, to the province. I think our focus is, while the fines are important, our focus is, if we go to court, is how do we get the site restored? And that can be quite costly for the applicant if there's large amounts of fill that have been brought in or wetlands have to be restored. Our focus is we've been really on that, but that's an excellent point.
And just a last question, Madam Chair. If we go, once these fees are levied and the fees are all raised, how many staff do we plan to bring in to help with the planning, to bring it up? Is it going to be a full-time staff or part-time staff? Does y'all have any idea on that yet?
If I may, through the chair, I don't want to steal Ben's questions, but we are looking at a full-time staff person that we want to add on. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. That's all.
Thank you. Member Watson is up next.
Thank you, Chair McLeod. And I'm just looking at the report, and the significant paragraph to me is the significant increase in workload has placed tremendous pressure on staff to meet provincial and municipal review timelines, and has resulted in reduced efficiency in recognizing user fee revenues. And I guess this is one way of addressing it, is adding more bodies. But the recent Ontario Housing Task Force just came out about affordability, and they're focusing on 5 different areas. But one that they mention, which is prominent, is to increase housing supply over the long term, including to digitize and modernize the approvals and planning process. I do know, I can't speak for all the municipalities in the NVCA, but I know, I believe Collingwood, you as chair would know Collingwood is moving to a portal, or you may already have it for the building department and that, so people can track and follow these things themselves. And Wasaga Beach is doing the same thing. We have something called City View, where people that are doing permits, they can do a lot online, pretty much everything online. They can go back in and track the progress of these things so that they're not dealing with staff time everywhere. One of the other, and I've got tons of articles here recently on affordability of housing, and the big thing is, again, cutting red tape to streamline the process. And Housing Minister Steve Clark has talked about everyone has a role to play in addressing the housing supply crisis. Industry leaders and experts, we are balancing these perspectives to develop practical, forward-thinking policies that unlock and fast-track all types of housing. And they talk about industry leaders and experts, which would be the Conservation Authority. Unless I missed it, I've heard no talk at the authority about doing anything along these lines to digitize, streamline the process so the public. That's Doug, you'll know, every month I get a few inquiries, people looking, where's their permit? No one's got back to me, this type of thing. And, by doing this, I think you can save staff time also and make it more efficient, the process. So have we talked about it? Is anyone looking at it, or is it just being forgotten about? But I think it's something we need to look at as an authority, and perhaps a third-party review. We've had that in the past, to look at the operations of the authority and come back with someone independent to look at what can be improved. Thank you.
Director Hibbert, can you speak to any of those questions?
Yes, absolutely, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Watsons, for your questions. This is an ongoing discussion that we've had both internally and externally. Because of the sheer volume of inquiries, permits, different applications, we have set up an online inquiry form. We are looking at hopefully doing an online permit process as well. We're looking at other conservation authorities who have set that up, or even our own processes that we have in other programs. We have been reached out by a company called AECO, so AECO. They are looking at doing a project for Simcoe-wide, where they're hoping that they can develop a program that all Simcoe County municipalities will participate in terms of building permits. And of course, the conservation authorities would do that. So we've sat down and shared our processes and our involvement in planning processes. One of the biggest things we said to the group is we have 18 municipalities and they have 18 different processes, which makes it challenging for us. So if they're looking at harmonizing it, having one that goes across many of our municipalities, that would certainly help us. We also see the advantage of bringing this position in, as well as the other positions, is looking at opportunities to set out checklists, when we're receiving applications or we're receiving submissions, that there's clarity on what the expectations are. And we're hoping that also helps with efficiency in the review process too. We're not having back and forth on technical as much as we do now on technical submissions. So we think there's some great opportunities, and we are looking at that not only internally, other CAs with the county, and we'd be happy to talk with our various municipalities as well.
And I see CAO Hebner also wants to speak to this issue, and I see Director Flanagan too.
Through the chair, thank you very much. If I could address Councillor Watson's comment, it's important that all the board members do understand that, yes, there are times when we're challenged to get a permit out within the prescribed time limits. But as you saw in the last board meeting that we had, we're delivering 98% of the time on that situation. Many times when people call and they reach out to yourselves, they say, oh, I've already bought the house. I have to get this out. I'm on a tight timeline. I have to really move. They've had a conversation with us. We've told them that their permit is in the queue. We have a window of opportunity of 90 days to respond and work within that. And I think we're doing a tremendous work on meeting those timelines. And as Chris has just said, in addition to that, we're working extremely hard on how we can improve that even more. But the point that I really want to make here is that our portal, as one portal for us, the challenge is that connectivity to the 18 municipalities that are delivering the reception service in 18 different ways. So it's going to be a hard road. I think we're young right now in the activity, but we're certainly working towards that. The board, through your support, we've been able to digitalize a tremendous amount of our files, so staff don't have to come through and rummage through hand-folded files and maps. We can get product out. We can look at former staff reports. That's all leading to this process that Chris is talking about. So we're working hard at it, and I just encourage you when you are approached by the public to direct them to senior staff, to encourage that. George is excellent at this. He reaches out, he gets a response. Our process is to respond to our board member and to respond to the proponent if they have a question. And we need to hear back from you if that's not happening to your satisfaction. And you're all reaching out when you have a problem. That's great. So just continue to do that, please.
Thank you. And Director Flanagan also had a reply, I think.
Thank you. Through the chair, I just wanted to quickly speak to the CityView software that Councillor Watson was referring to. There are a few CAs in a number of municipalities who are utilizing that specific software. We have looked in it in the past, and I believe Director Hibbard can confirm if what I'm saying is correct, but I believe when we looked into it, the cost was well over the 6-figure mark, and that is not something that the NVCA has, laying around as something we can invest in. So we have, as both CAO Hebner and Director Hibbard said, created an in-house program that allows us to be a little bit more flexible in communicating with the other department or other municipalities. And we're continuing to look at options that we can do so that we're not spending that money. And I see that Director Hibbard raised his hand, so I might have been incorrect.
Director Hibbard?
No, absolutely. Just to confirm what Director Flanagan had said, we have the unique ability that we have staff in-house that can create these programs, and we've been very fortunate. So we've created our own digital filing system, which had allowed us to, in a sense, save that money. But it also allows us to, when we did have to go paperless during COVID, we were already there. It allowed us to start working from home. So very fortunate to have, under Cheryl's direction, that staff. So and we did save quite a bit of money by doing that.
Thank you. And I see you have a follow-up, Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Chair McLeod. I don't know if you have a grant writer on staff or someone that does apply for grants, but this is a serious issue, and if it's a matter of money, sometimes applying to the government or MECP to let them know the challenges. If you haven't done it, or if you have done it, that's great. But these things all work to help the authority going forward. And the portal I'm referring to, Collingwood and Wasaga Beach, is for the public to go in and look at it, not necessarily your internal operations, what you digitize, but for them to go in and track these things so they're not taking up your time. So I think there's a case to be made that you need software like this, and it would enhance the ability to speed things up, which helps with the housing task force. Could cut costs. I know you're talking about raising fees, which goes against what they want. Is every layer of government, conservation authorities all along the line, the experts. The more you raise fees, the more that gets passed on to the consumer, and that's what they're trying to avoid. But anyway, that's a decision you'll have to make on there. Thank you.
Thank you. And you had a response to that, Director Hibbard.
Just a point of clarification, we're not proposing any fee increase. We just believe that the staff resources would help us better recognize the fees under the current fee structure.
Thank you for that clarification. Member Allen had a question or a comment.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
There. Thank you, Chair. Is this department affected by the inventory of programs and services? And will the size growth of this department be affected by the transition to the new system as a result of this whole process, dealing with the different municipalities, some taking on more of the planning themselves, some leaving it as it is one question. And I think I just heard that there's no increase in fees, but did not the report refer to the fact that incremental fees will cover the cost of this person? I'll stop there. Thanks.
Thank you. Who can take that question? Director Hibbert or Manager Kroll?
I'm happy to take it and then pass it to Ben. So I think, and Ben can, I'll let Ben clarify on the fee part, but I think we were just talking about revenue recognition. In terms of the legislation that's come out, under the legislation, both 686 21 Ontario Reg and phase 2, planning is certainly a category 1 project, especially when it's focused on natural hazards, wetlands, as well as the permitting. There may be some components of natural heritage that may be category 3, and that would be subject to an MOU with our municipal partners. But the primary component of what we're doing is a category 1. So, and I don't know if Manager Kroll would like to speak more to the fee component.
Yes, through you, Madam Chair. So the fees that would be recognized on a more regular basis associated with these plans of subdivisions, aggregate files, and with recognizing those fees on a more regular basis, it is our hope that those fees would be able to support the additional staff member. So there would be no increase of fees. It would just be strictly the user fees and the application fees that we would be receiving as part of those applications.
So cost recovery is kind of what we're talking about. Does that suffice, yes. Mayor Allen?
So do you, thank you, Chair. Do you see that being the case, cost recovery on an ongoing basis if this person becomes full-time?
That's our hope, yes.
There we go.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Member Little, Vice Chair Little.
Thank you. My question is around the issue of staff retention. I know that we seem to have a bit of a shortage of qualified skilled planners in this part of the province, and that because perhaps of the pandemic, there have been some shifts, people changing jobs, etc. That's more prevalent. So I just wondered, I'm not looking for an immediate answer, but should we be exploring the issues around staff retention? Changes in staffing can be quite costly. And I just wondered if we should be looking at that issue for the NVCA. Is there a way that we can reduce changes in staffing levels, et cetera, down the road? So I'm just wondering if that's something we should explore later on.
Is there any staff member who would like to respond to that? There does seem to have been a lot of turnover in the last little while. Oh, okay. So CAO and Director Flanagan and Manager Kroll are all willing, and Director Hibbert. Fight amongst yourselves. Who wants to answer this?
Through the chair, I'll take the first kick at the can here, if I may. The pandemic has interestingly provided us with opportunities to bring staff in from outside of our region through the remote working process. And I thank you all for your support in our last meeting of our proposed remote working strategy that we've put forward. I think that will allow us to compete a little bit better with some of our municipal partners and other planning agencies. It's still tough. Think back to the time we had Liebel working with us as a planner, excellent planner, great team player, happy in her work. But when somebody comes along and says, we'll make you an associate the day you start, we'll increase your salary by $40,000. And what do you think about that? And that's while she's working on files for the NVCA, side to side with the consultant who's going, wow, this woman is just a consummate professional. I need to hire her. So those are some of the challenges that maybe you don't see that we face each day. The other thing is the conversations we've had this morning. The people that come into our regulations department are usually young, started their careers. They've maybe done some contract work in other conservation authorities or municipal partners or in the consulting world. And they come to us, they start to work. Well, how would you like to start to work, get paid the same amount of money, and then each year have your workload just explode by 30% to the point where it's 75% in the last 4 years? Like, that's a challenge. And that's really when we have very, very fulsome exit interviews with our staff when they leave. And it's not, I'm dissatisfied, I'm really not happy. They're doing the work for a conservation authority because they want to play a role in working to improve the environment, to aid development in safe places where it can happen and the infrastructure can be protected for generations. They're here because they want to be here. So it's this economic piece that we have no control over. We're always looking at it. We're thinking about it. We're thinking of ways how we could get somebody in here or out. Like Ben, we were able to get Ben to come up from the Toronto Regional Conservation Authority. Fortunately for us, he lives in the southern part of our watershed. So even if he had to move into a full-time role 5 days a week in our office, there's an opportunity for him. I think the pandemic has provided some of those things, but we definitely have challenges. Think back to when we brought an engineer into our workforce a few years ago. We brought Allison in and we increased our engineering component by 1. That was 3% of our budget. That was challenging to make a strong business case to support the addition of $96,000 to $125,000 of revenue into that stream right away. I know we had some very good discussions on it, and fortunately, again, the board, in your wisdom, supported that decision, and we've been able to move forward. We may be having these conversations in the future about how we may need to take on City View. We need to find $100,000 or $150,000 to implement a program like that. Or we may continue to work through the process and say, this is a good fiscally responsible decision to bring on more staff. So that's where we're at. It's something that we discuss pretty much weekly, bi-weekly, monthly at our senior management team. And then we transition those senior management discussions to our management team. Every other month, we meet, quarterly, we meet with our senior managers and have these types of discussions. So if, this is the role that as board members, I really strongly encourage you. You bring a toolbox that's different than what we have. You have input and insights that we don't have. So if you have these insights that you think can help us or better direct us, or your former experiences can aid us on being more client-centric, delivering timelines in faster times, being more efficient, we're all ears, and encourage your response and in your dialogue with us. So sorry if I went on, but.
Director Flanagan, Director Hibbard, or Manager Krull, any follow-up to what the CAO had to say?
Yeah, I'll go next quickly, if I may.
Ahead.
I just want to kind of go off of what Doug had to say there. One of the things that we've always struggled with at this particular CA anyways, and a lot of other CAs do, is the ability to pay market rate to want or to be able to retain these staff members. We always seem to be a little bit lower than municipalities and definitely lower than kind of what's out in the private sector. So as Doug kind of mentioned, you really have to have these passionate people who want to be here. And even then, sometimes we can't keep them because a lure of an extra $40,000 a year is a pretty big lure. And so that's kind of the big reason why we've had some recent turnover. It's not just us. COVID really impacted all industries in regards to turnover. Because of that, I mean, market rates have skyrocketed. Competitiveness in the ability to not just have salaries, but better benefits, work from home options. All of those things now are very much at the forefront when you're trying to bring people in the door. And unfortunately, the only thing that we can really be competitive with right now is our work from home. And if we look at having any sort of a compensation review or any of that, where do we find that money? And we know that coming back to you as municipalities, that's a struggle because you have your own fiscal responsibilities to deal with. So right now, we're still doing okay. We're able to bring in the great people, like Ben is a recent hire that's already been mentioned. But I know that probably in the near future, or probably within the next couple of years, I imagine we'll probably hit a bit of a brick wall where we're going to struggle to bring people in the door. So that was just my comments to add to that.
Director Hibberd, Manager Kroll.
I'll ask Ben to go first, if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, thank you through you, Madam Chair. Just to build on what Doug and Cheryl were saying, there is a provision in this the staff report to convert a development review assistant from the contract to permanent, and they are the heartbeat of our team, and just to provide additional assurances to that staff member, we were hoping to make that possibly a permanent position as well. So we are looking at different initiatives like that to try to retain staff and try to take whatever opportunities we can to do that.
Thank you. Director Hibberd?
Yes, I'll just be brief, not to repeat what anybody else has said, but I have talked to colleagues at municipalities and other CAs. This is not unique to us. This is sort of across the board. Keeping planners, and I'll use to separate the planners from the regulations people, but keeping planners and having and filling that and competing with municipalities and other CAs. The regulation part is very unique. It combines both the permit issuance as well as the enforcement, and that is always can be a wearing on staff as well as the volume of work. But I think we've brought in some great people. The key now is to kind of fill these positions that we've talked about and to retain the staff the best that we can.
Thank you. I know even in the town of Collingwood, we lost one of our managers to an engineering firm this week, and a long-term, hard-working, awesome manager, and just plucked because there's more money elsewhere. So I totally understand those difficulties. That was Vice Chair Little's question. Member Harvey had a question.
Thanks, Chair McLeod. Actually, my question got answered. I guess Mayor Allen and I are thinking the same thing again. But I will say, especially when you read this survey that was in one of the other reports there, it is a testament. Well, when you look at how small this department is, with one planner and only a few others to assist, it's a testament to what they're doing. Because I know we, as councillors, we hear complaining all the time, but when you look at that survey doesn't justify. It just goes to show you the complainers are such a small little portion of it. So it's a testament to the group and Ben and his staff to the work that they're doing. And we just segued into another conversation too about salaries and stuff, and it is a struggle even at the municipal level, losing people all the time, and that's where maybe in the future we need to have a deeper discussion about this, and maybe there needs to be a little bit more incentive put towards retention. But again, that's a whole other thing that we could be talking half a day about probably.
Free maple syrup, perhaps. Director Hibberd, did you want to respond to Member Harvey there? I saw your hand go up.
Yeah, other than to thank Councillor Harvey for his comments, and you look at, and I was talking to our communications person, her report is next, and you look at the 80 to 90% of good to excellent comments on surveys, and then you look at the staff report that we had in December, we're into the 90th percentile in terms of meeting provincial standards with the staff, the amount of staff we do. I know I'm biased because I'm the director, but they churn out a lot of work, and given the small staff, and we need to support, because the other component is people can get burnt out if you don't have the resources around them, and that's what we're trying to avoid.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from members of the board on item number 12.2.4? Excellent. And so we will call for the vote on that, and it is moved by Councillor Mercer and seconded by Mayor Allen. Resolved that the NVC Board of Directors receive staff report number 8-03-22 BOD regarding planning and permitting review staffing. It is a yes from Mayor Pinto, a yes from Member Mercer, a yes from Member Manctolo. I don't see any other visible.
That motion has carried.
Thank you. That brings us to item number 13, which is the third item from the consent list, which has been pulled. Now, this was a notice of motion provided at our last meeting by Member Patterson, who is not here. And so I'm going to, I'd like to hear actually from him on this motion, since it was his idea. And so what I think I will do is ask for a motion to defer. Since we've got on the agenda, oh, hang on, I think that we've amended the agenda to provide this.
Through the chair, yes. If you refresh and go back to the agenda on onboard, you'll see a section called 13.1, motion to defer. At this point, what we've done is we took the two people who were to move and second Councillor Patterson's motion. We've made them the mover and the seconder for the motion to defer, as long as they're comfortable with that. So you can go in once the vote has been called. We'll vote there for you. You'll just have to refresh it again in a moment because it doesn't say view approval yet.
Right. Excellent. And so is it amenable to Councillor Nielsen and Councillor Matrasoff to move this new motion? I'm seeing a nod from
Yes, it is.
Matrasoff. Thank you. And Member Nielsen, are you okay with that as well?
To be honest, I feel like it's something that could be discussed today. However, I understand everybody's objective of trying to have the individual who moves the motion. So if everybody else is wanting to defer it, then I have no problem moving it.
Excellent, thank you. Generally,
excuse me, Chair.
Yes,
my apologies. Our internet is not great today.
Sure.
I wonder if we can just accept his notice of motion. It's outlined there, and I just wonder if we can accept it. Sorry, and at the next meeting, the motion will come forward, and hopefully, Member Patterson will be present.
Sorry, yeah, just as a procedural matter, so the notice was provided last time, so it probably ought not say notice of motion there. It is now a motion that is on the table. The notice was provided last time. So we either at this point discuss and vote on it, or we defer it because it is on the agenda. So we do have the moving of this, and I'm trying to stick to procedures. Generally, there's not discussion on a deferral or a referral, and so I think what we should probably do, just to stick to our administrative bylaws, is to vote on whether to defer it or not. And then if we don't defer it, we can actually have the conversation about the motion. And so I will call the vote on the deferral at this time. And it's not actually on your board book. Oh, what's it called now? On board?
Through the chair, yes, it is. If you refresh the page, there's actually been 6 votes already. So.
Oh, excellent. So there it is. And so I will ask for those votes on the deferral. And then there's a yes from Member Watson and a yes from Mayor Pinto, a yes from Member Manctolo, a yes from Vice Chair Little as well. You can add to that. And a yes from, is that a yes, Member Mercer?
For the deferral, yes.
Yes, okay, thank you.
And through the chair, that motion has carried.
Okay, great. So we are going to defer that to our next meeting, which will be in April. And so, other business, item number 14. Does anyone have any other business they would like to discuss at this time? I see none in camera. And so I'd like to, sometimes we don't take the time to go in camera if we're all in agreement with the recommendations contained. And I just want to see if there's anyone who is desperate to go in camera to discuss the item that is in camera? Oh, excellent. So then we will not go in camera and we will just come out of it. And what we'll do is vote on item number 16, I guess. How does that? Yeah, so we'll just vote on item number 16 on board, the in camera, and it is resolved that the Board of Directors receive the Chief Administrative Officer's 2021 Annual Performance Review and 2022 Review for implementation. And if I can ask you all to vote on that at this time. We have a yes from Mayor Pinto. Is that a yes, Member Mercer? A thumbs up from Member Sandu, a yes from Member Manctalo, thumbs up from Member Jeb, and
the motion has carried, Chair.
Thank you so much. Okay.
I can figure out how to get into that.
Sometimes it requires a little bit of dexterity on those iPads. So thank you for your indulgence. And that, I think, brings us to item number 17, and it is recommended by Councillor Jeb and seconded by Councillor Bonato that this meeting adjourn at, what time is it? 10:14 a.m. And so we'll look for that vote as well. And that is a yes, I'm assuming, from, yeah, thumbs up from Member Mercer, and a yes from Member Manctalo. And I'm assuming this one's going to pass.
And through the chair, as always, this motion is the fastest one to always pass.
There we go. Okay, so thank you everyone for your kind attention. We will meet again on April 22nd at 9 o'clock in the morning. Thank you so much. Have a great day.